Thank you so much for being here, everybody. Welcome. So this is part 2 of a series that I started in June. And this masterclass is called Mastering Midlife. And we are looking to understand the role of cortisol, specifically where it comes to tips for weight loss. So I have a little sort of subtext here, which says, hint, it's not as hard as we think, because I think that we have been taught that it should be really difficult. And my hope for you after 45 minutes here is that you not only understand the role of cortisol, what it is, we'll start there in a moment, its role, and its really important role, why it's not all bad, and really tips for learning how to manage this really important hormone, because if we don't manage it, it will manage us. Yeah. So I'm just going to make sure that everybody as they come in is muted. So if you are not, please go ahead and do that. I see a few people who are not quite muted, so I'll do that right now. All right. So, okay. Here's what I'd love to start with. I would like to ask all of you who are here live, if you attended the masterclass in June. So the masterclass in June was called The Secrets to Weight Loss. And I had over 150 women sign up. We had close to 50 show up for the call, and many, many of you received the recording. So what I'd love to know in the chat is if you heard the recording or you were with me live. So you can just throw in a yes. If it's a no, that's fine. You don't have to write anything in the chat, but I would love to see a few of you. I think a few of you were here with me the month of June live. Great. Tanya, thank you. Yeah. Watch the recording. Amazing. Yeah, I had a lot of people tell me afterwards that they watched the recording, and that really meant a lot. So to take the time after the fact, it's not always easy if you don't get a chance to attend a call live to take the time to do that afterwards. So thank you. Okay, amazing. And if you still want to hear that one and you weren't there, I can send that to you. So my second question to you before we start going into the next slide is, so whether you attended the class or not, I would love to know what has inspired you to be here tonight. So you can give me one word. Maybe it's weight loss tips. Maybe it's I'm just interested in learning more about what cortisol is. Doesn't even need to be complicated. I'd love to know why you're here tonight. So if you can throw that in the chat, I'd love to see what a couple of you have to say. Monobelly. Oh, yes. Confusion. I really get that. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else? Stubborn belly fat. Yes, we're going to talk about that, Sue. Thank you. Okay. I've got one more question before I get to this slide. So the last thing I'm going to ask you, and we're going to dive right in a moment because I want to be respectful of your time this evening, is what would you like to get out of these 45 minutes? So a few of you have written here that you'd like some help. Maybe there's confusion. There's so much information out there. We don't know what to do. We don't know what to eat. We don't know when to eat. What is a monobelly anyway? What is cortisol? I would love to know what you're hoping to get out of this experience. So after the 45 minutes is over, when we say goodbye, what is it you would like to know? So throw something in the chat for me to see. This is all really helpful information. Helps me get clear in the way I teach, and it helps me know what topics you all want to learn about for after this masterclass. So I will be having one every month. Clarity. Okay, good. Thank you. Tips besides just reducing stress. Okay, thank you, Diana. Yeah, I will get more specific then. Everyday tips, yeah. Okay. We're going to talk all about that. All right. So I said this last time in June, and I'm going to say it again. Most of you are probably here because learning how to deal with my middle-aged body after a lifetime of not having to worry about what to eat. Yes. Thank you, Lena. Thank you very much for that. So here are some of the things that I hear over and over again from the people that follow me, my students, friends, family, just anyone really that is interested in understanding or getting a clear picture of what it is like to be in perimenopause, to be in your 40s, maybe even beyond your 40s, because certainly we have the whole age gamut here with us this evening. And really just to understand changing body composition, right? Because the more we understand and the clearer we are, the more we can master midlife. And that is the title of the masterclass. So it's much harder to lose weight. I hear this all the time. Oops, let's go back here. It's much harder to lose than it used to be, whether it's a small amount of pounds, whether it's a large amount of pounds. What is cortisol anyways, and why does it matter? So let's talk about that, because a lot of people don't even really understand the role cortisol plays in the body. You're tired of feeling wired and tired. So this is a really good saying, wired and tired. This is this feeling often happens at night when we're trying to fall asleep, or sometimes in the middle of the night, particularly if we're experiencing menopausal symptoms where you are exhausted, you know you want to sleep, but at the same time, you just have this surge of energy, which really actually is more a surge of cortisol running through the body. So we're done with that. You would love to feel radiant and you'd love to feel sexy again. And you would love some tips. And that's why we're here. We're going to go through all that. Okay. So most of my clients, in the context of, we just have somebody that is not muted, so I'll just go ahead and do that. In the context of my nutrition one-on-one coaching, come to me for many of these reasons listed here. Not all of them, sometimes some of them, sometimes many of them, sometimes all of them, but those would include experiencing better sleep. And that includes not only being able to fall asleep easily, but being able to stay asleep. So I hear this over and over again as we approach this very delicate time in our life when we're approaching perimenopause or menopause, this feeling of waking in the night, sometimes 2 or 3 a.m. and not being able to go back to sleep. Being noticed for your radiant glow. I think that beyond the metric of being slim, it's nice to be noticed for that beauty that really shines from the inside out. And I think that for myself, when I think about health as a whole, I really do want that health to come from the inside, not just about, the size of jeans that I'm fitting into. Saying goodbye to calorie counting, stubborn weight, achieving balanced hormones, easy breezy menopause. So really just preparing the body for that very critical portal. And I really do call it a portal, is an opportunity to step into this next stage of our life, really empowered as women, finding inner peace and relaxation, and really that tailored support that a nutritionist or a wellness coach can offer you. All right. So let's dive in. We've got the 3 truths about cortisol that might surprise you. All right. So number 1, and this is what we're going to go through tonight. We're going to go through all of these in detail. And towards the end of class, I will give you, so stick around till the end, I am going to give you some tangible tips. I think somebody had said that in the chat. They wanted tangible tips, not just de-stress, but tangible tips how to manage cortisol levels. So 3 surprising truths about cortisol. Number one, cortisol is not all bad. Now, throw in the chat if you have heard time and time again that cortisol is the enemy. You know, if that's something that you are used to hearing, I'd love to see that, because it's something that I've certainly been used to hearing. And until I've studied this further and gone into sort of the deep dive of what cortisol is and the importance that the important place that it holds within the context of our hormones, I really didn't understand what it was, or that it had a place. It was really important. So is anyone with me? I'd love to hear from somebody. Have you heard that cortisol is just bad? We hear about cortisol all the time right now. It's a really hot topic. Yes. Exactly. So I'm not alone. So number two, the second truth that I think sometimes might surprise people, and that is managing cortisol is not actually that difficult. I go back to something I said just a moment ago, and that is it can be simple. So what if I told you that trusting your body, that treating your body in a way that is with reverence and love and respect is actually how you are going to prepare your body for this portal or this transition. And regardless of whether you're in perimenopause, menopause, or beyond your bleeding years right now, this applies to all of us in this room right now. So we haven't been taught how to manage our hormones. This is not something we're taught in school. This is something that, unfortunately, we learn later in life, particularly about, applying our cyclical health as an example. It's not something that we learn in our younger years. We have to sort of go out and find that knowledge, and we learn it later. So I'm going to teach you that it's not that hard, and that there are some really simple things you can do that you can take away tonight, actually, that will start to make a difference. And the third would be that cortisol is the secret ingredient to weight management. So, I mean, that's a bold statement, but I would say probably based on what I know many of you tonight that are here, and what many of you have told me in the past about holding on to a little bit of a weight, how that's shifted over the years, how it's a little bit different as you're into your 40s, 50s, and 60s and beyond. If I had to pin it down to one thing, because of course weight is never that simple, it's far more nuanced. But if I had to pick one thing, it would be managing your cortisol. That is number one. And this is good news and bad news, because here's the thing. Don't worry about restricting calories. Don't worry about over exercising and stressing out to get to the gym 5 times a week, because none of that matters if you're not paying attention to things like cortisol. Okay. Okay, number one. Cortisol is not the enemy. First, I want to explain just a little bit about what cortisol is so we all understand and we're on the same page, why it matters, how I help my clients manage cortisol, and then a key takeaway. Oh, there's a little typo there. So what is cortisol? And, feel free to take notes here if you would like to. Of course, you can listen to the recording, but I do, encourage people to really take something away so that and you understand what this really important hormone is. So it is a steroid hormone in the body, and it is produced by our adrenal glands. Our adrenal glands are located just above your kidneys, and you can even go ahead and take your own hands and just place them right behind your waist. And that's where we would find our kidneys, and our little adrenal glands are just above our kidneys, and that is what produces our cortisol. So it's important, right? But it's not all bad. It's just what I've already spoken about. I like to say it's sort of a bit of a blessing and a curse. So we need cortisol. We need cortisol to help us with any of the fight and flight reactions. So when something stressful happens in our body, we need that surge of cortisol in the body to put us into action mode. Now, The tricky part is when we have a constant surge of cortisol in the body that never stops. And then we have a surplus of this hormone, which has a very important place in the body, but it has an important place when it's balanced. So when we have just enough, it's just right. It's a bit like Goldilocks. We don't want too much. We don't want too little. We want just enough, because it is in fact possible to be low in cortisol as well. It gives us the boost that we need, but we don't want too much. So the thing is, nowadays in our culture, with women in particular, and I'll use women as an example because we are a group of women here tonight, we tend to be driving out of a hypercortisol state all of the time. Now, remember, cortisol, or an influx of cortisol, happens in the body not just in an emergent situation. So if you think of witnessing a car accident as an example, you have that surge of fight and flight that happens in the body. That would be that feeling of cortisol. You're driving, your heart is racing, you're red in the face, you're sweating. But it doesn't just happen in those instances. It happens when you have conflict at the office. It happens when you have a fight with your partner, when you're arguing with your teenage children, when you feel like you are just running around throughout the day and you don't have enough time to do the things that you feel like you need to do to care for yourself. So cortisol is coursing through our bodies all of the time, pretty much 24/7. Most of us are pretty high in cortisol. Again, some of us can be low during the day. That's also possible. The idea is that we want to balance that out, because remember from a couple of slides ago, there is no point in counting calories and restricting and stressing yourself out getting to the next HIIT class if those cortisol levels are not balanced. Okay. The bottom line, and I've said it before, and I'll say it a million times again, is that if your cortisol is too high, you will not lose weight. If your cortisol is too high, you will not lose weight. So here's the thing. Every year after 40, our cortisol levels increase naturally. And that's without doing anything. That's not with extra stress in the body, or because we've changed jobs or had a divorce or experienced a death in the family. Just by virtue of aging and female physiology, every year over 40, our cortisol levels increase. So we sort of have this double-edged sword happening. We not only have to manage our cortisol levels because it's just important to manage our cortisol levels, but we have to now doubly manage our cortisol levels because physiologically speaking, after 40, they are increasing. We need to pay a little bit of extra attention to our stress levels. When cortisol is too high, blood sugar spikes. So you might know this. Maybe you have a background in nursing or health, or as a dietitian. You understand that with sleep and wake cycles, when those become imbalanced, our blood sugar levels get out of whack. And when our blood sugar levels get out of whack, we are certainly not in a position to be losing weight. It just doesn't happen. So we gain weight more easily, and it unfortunately becomes harder to lose. So those two things are, tend to happen when cortisol is too high. And that is where we will see things like what we've heard of cortisol belly. And I'm going to get actually into that into the next stage. Cortisol can actually make us irritable. It can even create a little bit of depression and hostility. So when I work with my clients, I focus heavily on cortisol management. And in terms of key takeaway, which we're going to talk about in the next slide, which is going to be the importance of sleep. So I cannot overestimate the importance of sleep enough. And we're going to talk about why in a moment. I'd actually love to hear from all of you. So 1 to 10, 10 being you sleep 8 to 9 hours of night, you're in bed early, you put your phone away, you feel that part of your life is solid. Could you throw in the chat where you would be? 10 being there's no room for improvement, and 1 being there's a lot of room for improvement. So I'm seeing some 3s, a 6, a 7. And of course, this can change. 7. Yeah, this is going to depend on where you are in your cycle. If you're still cycling, this is going to depend on life stresses. It's going to depend on things like if you're consuming alcohol, right? There's lots of variables. Yeah, can't emphasize enough getting to bed at a decent hour. And when I say decent hour, I mean 10 and you're asleep by 11 and you're sleeping 8, potentially 9 hours. I know that feels like a lot, but I did read a recent study that suggested women need 9 hours. And our partners, if we are with men, is actually going to be there's going to be different needs there. You know, men can quite often be highly functioning on much less sleep than we can. And that's okay. We're physiologically really different. So number 2, after cortisol is not the enemy, we have to understand that we need cortisol. It's important. It's what gives us our surge. It's what helps us when we're in an emergent situation, right? Without it, we wouldn't have what we need to literally fight the saber-toothed tiger. So think of it in terms of those historical days. We move on to number 2, which is the management. So how do we actually manage this thing called cortisol? Now that we understand what it is, now that we understand that it's not all bad, how do we manage it? So we're not going to fear it. That's the very, very first thing. It just is. And we're not going to fear it. It's here to protect us. And I think that this is part and parcel with trusting that your body is not making mistakes. Trusting that as women in particular, we really have this innate ability to heal. You can and you are your best healer. So in other words, we don't need to go outside of us for any assistance or advice, or even potentially, seeking an answer that is already inside of us. So I want you to remember that. It's not about finding something outside of you. It's truly in here. Our bodies don't make mistakes. If you are experiencing things like cortisol and belly fat, I want you to remember and potentially take this as an opportunity that your body is telling you something. Okay, maybe it's time to slow down. Maybe it's time to listen to your body. Maybe you never have. Maybe you've betrayed your body like so many of us have for many, many years. Maybe it's time to say, you know what? Today I'm going to skip the extra HIIT workout and I'm going to take a walk in the forest instead, because that's actually what I'm needing. And maybe this afternoon, I'm going to close my eyes for 20 minutes rather than getting to the 3 things on my to-do list that have been driving me crazy, because ultimately that is what is going to heal us. Those are the things that are going to regulate our nervous system and de-stress us. And what happens when we de-stress? Our cortisol levels balance out. And what happens when we balance out our cortisol levels? We can then move to the next stage of, okay, I want to get rid of some weight. How do I do that? Okay. I want you to remember that by learning that we can manage the cortisol before it manages us is the absolute best avenue to empowering our bodies again. So whether that means you don't like the shape of your body, or you feel like you have belly fat now that you never did before, this is not an inevitable thing that every woman on the planet is going to experience. We're all very different. It also doesn't mean that you can't change it. I want you to remember that. So elevated cortisol levels, just so we're clear, I want everyone to understand by the end of these 45 minutes that it's a result of chronic stress. It's a result of chronic stress. So if your cortisol levels have been raised for some time, You have been under stress. And I want you to think about that for a moment, because so many of us, we underestimate the stressors in our lives. We think, well, I don't really have anything to be stressed about. I have so much to be grateful for. I have a good job. I have a great partner. I eat well, etc. But really think about it. We put so much on our plates. We put so much pressure on ourselves, especially as women, to really do it all. Many of us have children that we're caring for. We have parents that we're caring for. We're tending to our homes. We have partners. We have jobs. We have friends. It's a lot. And it's much more than it ever was in terms of the responsibilities that are on us. So if you have experienced chronic stress, I just want you to give yourself some grace, because it's okay, and know that it can change. Okay. Number 3 is cortisol is the secret ingredient to managing your weight. So I had said in an earlier slide that if it came down to it and I had to choose one thing, because of course weight gain and weight loss and holding onto weight is so nuanced, and it's not a simple topic, never has, never will be. But if I had to choose one thing for you to focus on, if weight is something that you're really concerned about, or if it's bothering you, I mean, there's so many things we could talk about here, but if that is something, if the menopause belly is something, I don't like that, I don't want that there. First of all, it's not a foregone conclusion. We know that now, because we are our own healers. And the important piece is that you can manage this, because your body is giving you some messages right now. Absolutely. So impact on muscle mass. I want to talk a little bit about this, because cortisol does affect muscle mass. So high levels of cortisol can contribute to the breakdown of muscle mass. So if you are over 45 and you have a sort of a fairly decent muscle mass, meaning you work out 3 times a week, you lift some weights, you consider yourself fairly fit. So beyond sort of walking and gentle yoga, if you do weight bearing exercises and you feel like you have some muscle mass, excess cortisol in the body will impact that muscle mass. So, not to beat a dead horse, but of course, everything I'm saying here is reiterating that managing your cortisol levels is super, super, super important. So diet and exercise are the common strategies for weight management. The role of stress and cortisol in muscle prevention is often overlooked. So I'll say that again. The role and stress of cortisol in muscle preservation, is often overlooked. So meaning decrease the cortisol, get to the gym, weight-bearing exercises as women over 45. This is the secret sauce, in addition to sleep, which we're going to talk about again, because sleep is so important. So sleep and cortisol regulation. Poor sleep elevates cortisol levels. Poor sleep elevates your cortisol levels. It's as simple as that. If you are not sleeping well, if you are sleeping less than 8 hours a night, if you are waking many times in the night, can't get back to sleep, if you're waking too early, if you're not able to rest enough over the course of the day, over the course of the week, your cortisol levels will be too high. So the number one thing that I would like you to take away with tonight is to get sleep under control. That is one of the single most important things you can do to age well, in my opinion. Sleep is everything. I want to talk a little bit about some mistakes that women particularly are making when it comes to weight loss, cortisol levels, balancing, etc. So trying to lose weight with diet and exercise alone. So if you were with me in June and I spoke about the most common misconceptions around weight gain and weight loss in your 40s and beyond, I spoke about this. I reiterated this over and over. It is not just about calories. So when you work with me as in the context of being a health and wellness coach, the very first thing I have my clients do is we ditch the calorie counting. If we do it, it's really just to get a metrics and like a baseline, and we do it for a couple of days and that's it. Because there's so much information that I'm not able to gather based on simple calorie counting. Okay. So mistake number 2, not eating for your hormones. I spoke much more about this in detail in the June masterclass. I'm not going to go into that much detail this time, but I will say it again, and that's protein, protein, protein. So just as a reminder, 1 gram for every body weight that you are. Okay, so 1 gram for every body weight that you are. So if you're 150 pounds, it's about 150 grams of protein. That's about your daily recommendation. That's what you're trying to get to. Focusing on the weight loss rather than the fat loss. Okay, another big mistake that women are making. So constantly weighing yourself, constantly looking at that number and thinking, I want the number to go down, and you're not really thinking or taking into consideration fat loss. And again, we've spoken about this, but I'll say it again. Number 4 is not enough emphasis on sleep. So not enough emphasis on sleep. So how age and hormones impact your weight. I spoke about this last month, but we have decline in muscle mass. So important to get to the gym, ladies. If you are over 40 and you are not lifting weights, at least 2 to 3 times per week. 3 would be the goal. Just start. If you need a little inspiration, one of my favorite humans on Instagram, her name is Train with Joan. Tell me in the chat if anyone knows her or follows her, because I'm obsessed with this woman. She started weight training at 70 years old and completely transformed her life. So she's just a complete inspiration. Yeah, Sue, love Joan. I love her so much. Yeah, so if you have any doubt that at whatever age you are, you feel like you cannot begin this process, just follow her. She's incredible and she will change your mind. Protein resistance, so the importance of eating lots of protein that we just spoke about, sedentary lifestyle, so just really moving in lots of different ways that make you feel good. So it doesn't always have to be a slog. It doesn't, if the gym or lifting weights is not something that you love, you'll do that maybe anyways, but you'll do other things that feel really great and bring you joy. Hormone fluctuations are really taking that into account, that our bodies are changing, our body mass is changing, everything is changing about us physiologically as we age, and then of course loss of estrogen. So getting off the weight loss, weight gain roller coaster once and for all. I like this image here on the right because it sort of encapsulates how I feel so many women approach weight gain, weight loss, this roller coaster, this constant sort of struggle with like losing the next 10, 20, 30 pounds, whatever it is for you, and really looking inward and reflecting on what it is that you're looking for. Are you looking to feel beautiful and sexy and radiant? Are you looking for your skin to be clear? Are you looking to feel that inner beauty that doesn't necessarily come from the number that you're seeing on the scale? And really remembering that there's so many other ways to get to all of those things that I just mentioned, and it doesn't have to be about restricting your calories or losing weight per se. And defining, what you consider to be weight loss. So like, what are you focusing on? Is it a number? Maybe you're focusing on a number that you used to see every single morning when you were in your 20s and 30s, and now you're in your 50s or 60s or 70s, and that changes. So let's find another metrics for how we feel as women, as aging women. So weight loss tips today. This is what I would love to give to you in terms of things that you can start tonight. And that is to put your sleep first, 8 to 9 hours a night. Yep, you heard me, 8 to 9 hours. Eating more protein, because I can pretty much guarantee that unless you worked with me, you're not eating enough. Yeah. So if we calculated your macros, I'm pretty sure that most of us here in the group tonight will be under proteined, especially as we age and physiologically over 40, because we have that protein resistance that we spoke about. Resting and napping every day, that really ties in with the sleeping, the appropriate amount of hours, nervous system regulation. So yes, that does mean de-stressing. And how do you do that? You do that through all of the things I just mentioned already, making sure you're sleeping, making sure you're caring for yourself, making sure you're moving in ways that are bringing you joy, resting, eating well, not guilting yourself when you want to enjoy a piece of bread or a carb or, whatever it is for you, really doing that with a feeling of true self-love, moving daily, never skipping a meal. So, I'm not a fan of the intermittent fasting for women. I really don't think it does us a physiological service at all, actually. Finding joy in your food again. Finding joy in your food. There is so much beauty in loving eating and really appreciating good food, good, clean food. So this is how I help women like you. I offer a 16-week coaching program, and it's one-on-one individualized support. I have some of you on the call tonight that have been through my programs. These are weekly and bi-weekly meetings, nutrition mindset coaching, weekly menus, lots of meal planning, grocery store roundup, pantry reviews, etc. So really taking you through the process of transformation to feel like the best version of yourself. So if you are interested, and if you have questions, I would suggest you book a discovery call, because I'm very happy to get on the phone and talk to you for about 15 minutes. And you can ask me anything. If you have questions that go beyond the scope of tonight's masterclass, write them down. I encourage you to do that. Book a call with me. There'll be a link at the end where you can do that quickly. And then we can discuss. So I'll just leave you here with a little testimonial that one of the clients that I worked with last year wrote. And I think I've chosen this one specifically because it speaks to how I approach nutrition and health and wellness for women a little differently, because I really do a deep dive into the energetics. So we work somatically with what might be blocking you from reaching some of your goals. And a little reminder about making changes, if not now, when. So it's never too late. I refer back to Train with Joan, who's amazing. And ask yourself, if nothing changed, where would you be in 5 to 10 years? And would you be okay with that? So this is a quick QR code if you would like to book a call with me. If you have more questions, it's completely complimentary. It's a 15-minute call, and I would love to, continue the conversation with you. So feel free to do that. If you have a question for me, we're just about at the end of our 45 minutes. I would be very happy to stay on a few minutes longer. We didn't do that last time. We just had too many people, but we're a smaller group tonight. So If you had a specific question and you would like to put that in the chat, I am more than happy to stay for an extra 5 minutes here. And otherwise, I want to thank you very much for joining and taking time out of your busy evening to come back. And again, we'll be here in August. So it'll be the third Wednesday of every month moving forward. So always a free masterclass. Come back, invite your friends. You'll get the recording for tonight's class in about an hour. And thank you so much for coming. Thank you.